So this is Steve. Just met you through Marketplace
5 minutes ago.
5 minutes ago, and I appreciate your graciousness in accepting my request. So, what do you think happens after this life?
Well, I think that, like I said, I don't believe in the afterlife per se. I think that, you live on through the people that you interact with throughout your life.
Okay.
So I think that, so I
like
think
your
that spirit doesn't ever go away until everybody that you knew goes away as well.
Yeah.
But then those people still carry,
Yeah.
their children, grandchildren, whatever.
Influence, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
like the immediate, the first generation, second generation.
Right. Right.
So, do you believe? So, would you say you believe in God or higher power?
Not necessarily. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up Southern Lutheran, born in South Carolina. And I'm sure I don't know if you're experienced with that, but those are the ones
I grew up Lutheran, but in Minnesota, so I don't know if Southern Lutheran is any different.
Those are the ones that hallelujah, stand up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So it was very...
kind of an emotional...
theatrical. I don't know if that's the right term, but, yeah. And so then my parents got divorced, and my stepmom was Catholic, so then we got introduced to the Catholic way of thinking, and... So, it's sort of a mixed background. So I don't really necessarily believe in a God per se. I believe that there's a right way and a wrong way to live your life. So,
for sure, yeah.
And so I pretty much stay on the right way. I mean, as far as, and people, like, you want to talk about the 10 Commandments or whatever, that's fine. And, that's just a really good guideline, really, as far as I'm concerned. And that's what I've tried to live my life that way.
Yeah.
So my mom was fairly religious. My dad... not religious at all. My stepmom was pretty religious, so that's why we switched over to the Catholicism.
Okay. So how old were you when you switched over to Catholicism?
5th grade, so that would be 12, I think.
So you probably went to like CCD, like the
well, actually, we just went to church on Sundays and then never did the Sunday school or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
So it was, my stepbrother and my stepsister were both raised Catholic, and then, like I say, my stepmom was really into the religious part of it. So
was there ever a point where you would say that you did believe like what the church was teaching, or did believe in God, or?
I don't know. I don't really think that I ever bought into the, dying and rebirth and that kind of thing. I don't really necessarily buy into that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And like you say, I mean, and the older I get, the more I understand that, it's a guideline, and people need guidelines.
Yeah.
Whether you're way this way or way that way, there's a medium in there. So you're either super religious or you don't believe in any religion at all.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in the middle there.
Okay.
So
you believe in the morals of religion, but not necessarily the supernatural aspects of it. Steve, what would it take to believe in God? Like what? So let's say there's a God out there, and the understanding of the Bible is that he's invisible.
Yeah.
Like he's made himself visible at times to different people, but for the most part, an invisible force with a personality, with preferences, with that can speak to us, and that has a plan, has purposes, that sort of thing. But let's say so that whole concept, what would it take to believe that is true? Like,
I don't think that would ever happen for me. I mean, I'm 60, going to be 69 here in a month.
Yeah.
And, I don't think, like I say, I don't necessarily believe in miracles or anything like that. I don't believe in luck. I believe that, that's one of the faults that I always had with the church. And I learned this early on, is that, they teach you to believe in something else. And my thought process was always to believe in yourself first and foremost, then believe in something else that, works for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where I come from. So I know I say it's not for everybody, but that's just, I believe in myself first and foremost. I always have. So
for example, like let's say, so in the Bible there was a guy, like Moses. You've heard of Moses, and God appeared to him in a burning bush, and so this bush was burning, but it never got burned up.
Right.
So it was like very unusual that way. Plus, a voice came out of the bush and spoke to him. Do you think if you were Moses at that point, like if something like that happened to you now, would you say,
I would
God,
look
I guess you do exist?
I would look for the rational explanation.
Okay.
I would. I mean, that's I've always been a rational guy. And I like I say, I don't believe in psychics or palm readers or any of that stuff.
Right. So rational means has to conform to, say, the laws of physics, right? The laws
you have input and then you have output. So, if the input doesn't match what you already have in your head, then it causes you to question things.
Yeah.
And
would you say that you're a science-minded?
Basically, yeah.
So it's basically based on your sense of logic and the scientific method,
absolutely.
that sort of thing. So as a religious person, a believer, I totally believe in science, right? Because I would say, I guess we had a delivery. That's why people are walking by. Because according to the Bible, it says God took disorder and put order into it. In other words, the whole book of Genesis is about God going through a step-by-step process of putting order into the universe.
Yeah.
And so for me, science is, what a scientist does is he observes the order of the universe. And based on that order, he can make assumptions about what to expect in other similar situations. Right. So I would say I don't think I don't think science can exist without God. God is the one who put order in, and so therefore we have science because there's order. Yeah. But if there is a God, a creator God that made order, could he not disrupt that order from time to time? See what I'm saying? Right. And so that's where miracles come in. It's like God is making an exception to the rule and saying, okay, in this case, I'm going to do this because I want to, communicate this, or for whatever purposes he does. And so as a Christian, I don't discount science. I think it's very important. It's the usual way God works, is how I would put it. As a matter of fact, the Bible even says God didn't just make the universe, he maintains it, or he keeps it running. And so if you think about all the different laws of science, for every law, there's got to be a lawgiver. In other words, who makes that law and who maintains it and makes sure that it's kept. No, and I get where you're. So that's where we get the idea that God is. And as a matter of fact, even the scientific revolution came about as a result of the Judeo-Christian mindset. Said, instead of believing in all of these different gods, because you're familiar with the Greek gods, right? So they believe there's a god of this hill and a god of that area and a god of the moon and a god of, and all of those gods are fighting each other and in conflict with each other, and so you have disorder, right? And so out of the and it's called pagan gods. Out of the pagan gods, the thing that was unique about Christian or the Jude. Really, it began with the Jewish religion, and then it, expanded to Christian. Yeah, was that there's one God who made it all, right? And he made the rules, and there's no conflict. Yeah, and see, and like I said, I know I've been around the block once or twice here, but as far as being Christian or not being Christian, again, if you believe that God lives inside of all of us, which I believe that there is. Like I say, again, a good we have something
rule of thumb to guide your life. Yeah. Whether that be the 10 Commandments or something else for you. Yeah. But that's the way I believe it. But like I say, the chaos either comes from within me or, it's set up to the individual to deal with how that chaos comes about to them.
Yeah.
So I can either create chaos or I can resolve chaos.
Yeah.
And so, that's the reason why, like you say, I tend to be more scientific minded. And the other thing is that I'm not really willing to say that, Christian God is the only God that's out there.
Yeah.
Because what that automatically does is it condemns everybody that doesn't believe the same way that you believe.
Yeah.
And I totally disagree with that.
Yeah.
And like I say, that's why I go back to there's a certain way to live your life, and growing up, learn the 10 Commandments. And I said, that's actually a pretty good rule of thumb,
Yeah.
And so that's the way I've tried to live my life. But to think that, like, say, Muslims or other, that the only way they can coexist with another religion is to kill them all, and be the only religion, And of course, Christians had their crusades, blah, blah, blah. So, so that's, again, the ideology isn't there for me as far as, the unknown, creating chaos or maintaining it, or,
So one of the ways I as a Christian believe Christianity is specific.
Yeah.
So it's basically, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So it's like, okay, it's got to be Jesus, right? But then it's also universal because according to the Bible, we all, ever since Adam and Eve, they broke God's one rule, and all of a sudden the Bible says their eyes were open. They knew good from evil. And so ever since then, according to the biblical understanding, is we all have a moral conscience. So like we all have this sense that, and I've been hearing you say it, like
based
we
on
all
your
have
belief
a sense
system,
of, there is a right and wrong. We might have some disagreements on, can you have one wife or 10? But we all agree you can't just go out and sleep with whatever woman you want. Like so there's a general moral conscience that all religions share.
Right.
And so that's what we have in common. And the other thing we have in common is we have this moral conscience, we have this moral code, and we've all broken it. And so it's like, whoa, what do we do? And so the different religions have different ways of coping with that.
Right.
And some will deny that God even exists, like Buddhism. Others that there's many different gods.
Right.
But there's usually a set of religious practices or moral commandments to follow.
Right.
Christianity is the only one that says, like you can't just take your good and your bad and hope that your good is better than your bad and then you're good to go.
Right.
Christianity actually says, no, the good we do, we should do anyway.
Well,
and
the best you can hope for is 50%. I mean,
Well,
and hopefully, some people are higher on that curve than others. But, it's a bell curve. I mean,
again, I've met a lot. So teaching in the inner city, I've met a lot of kids who did not. Well, anywhere. I shouldn't say inner city. A lot of kids who didn't have a good upbringing.
Yeah.
And so they might not act the way we want them to, but based on what they've been given, they're doing pretty well. And others have had a really good upbringing. Take this this recent
south,
this recent guy that shot the
exactly.
I mean, prosperity and everything, good education, and he goes out and kills a guy in cold blood. So but the fact is, we all know the good we should do, or the good things, or the bad things we shouldn't do, and we break that, and so religion says, well, how can
again, like going back to the CEO shooting, I don't know if you're in any online presence or not, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but there's a lot of people that
they're
condone that.
And
I actually find that very surprising, because, again, killing somebody is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And people actually are able to dock themselves into why it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And again, what influences that,
So I get in a lot of conversations with atheists. Well, I guess you would be an atheist, right? You don't believe God exists?
Yeah.
And the idea is, we know we don't need the reward of heaven or the threat of hell to be a good person. We're just a good person anyway.
Exactly.
But the thing that, to me, that makes me believe that atheists deep down, so the Bible, I have to go with what the Bible, like for me as a Christian, I believe the Bible, and if the Bible is inspired by God, we can find out more about ourselves than we even know about ourselves. So what the Bible would say is, even if a person denies that God exists, deep down, they know he does.
Right.
So you don't have to agree with that, but I'm just saying that's what the Bible would say, right? And the reason I believe that even atheists know that God exists deep down is everybody I've met, and I've never met an atheist who said, well, I just don't believe in God because I just want to go out and do whatever bad thing I want. And everyone has this, and I'm sure there are some that would say that, but I haven't met them.
Well, like you say, you never met John Wayne Gacy.
Right, exactly.
Because there are people like that. So,
But almost like everyone I've met, which is a lot of
the bell curve. Some are way on this side.
There's always
some
exceptions to
that
any
side.
rule, right? But everyone I've met wants to be seen as a good person.
Right.
Even if they're just to themselves, they want to justify, I'm a good person. And so when they come up with, like you were saying, like they justify even the cold-blooded murder of a person like this guy did, the fact that they have excuses or justifications somehow lets me know that they know they're accountable to someone,
Yeah.
And so everybody wants to be seen as, I'm one of the good guys. So even if God does exist, he would say I'm a pretty good person.
Yeah.
and so I have to say, well, according to the 10 Commandments, if we haven't kept them, then we are lawbreakers.
Right.
And so we're not in a good place with God. We've broken His laws. We failed to do a lot of the good things we should do. How could we save ourselves? Other religions might say, well, if your good outweighs your bad, or if your religious acts outweigh your bad, then maybe you can pay for it. Christianity actually says, no, only God could pay for it. That's why He died on the cross. And so to me, it's not just that I think that there has to be a lawgiver for the physical laws of the universe,
right?
But also for the moral laws.
Oh, definitely.
So to me, that's evidence. I would never say that, as a Christian, I would never say I can prove God exists.
Right.
Because, and here's the reason, the Bible actually says faith, which is acting without proof.
Right.
Faith pleases God. And so the Christianity is a faith. I will never have scientific proof that Christianity is true.
Right.
But I do believe there's like a body of evidence. Like in any court case, you have a body of evidence for and a body of evidence against.
Right.
And the jury has to weigh the evidence.
Right.
And so I would say, well, let's weigh the evidence and make our decision. And so for me as a Christian, I believe I have a faith, but it's not a blind faith. It's like a reasonable faith, because there is evidence.
Right.
But I'm also aware that there's evidence. I'm sure you would say there's evidence against it. So I get in these kind of conversations. I think they're friendly conversations. I know I would love to convince you to be a Christian, to be honest. But I know I can't. And that's a job only.
Oh, no, I don't have an issue discussing it. I just, like you say, I don't want to say I'm set in my ways, but I'm set in my ways. So,
well, it's good to realize that.
Yeah. Well, like you say, at this stage of the game, you kind of take in everything as much as possible. And again, and like you were saying, some kids go off this way, some kids go off this way.
Yeah.
Some kids stay in the middle, and the ones that go off to the bad side, I've seen them make changes.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty close to being one of them.
Yeah.
And
me both.
So, we went, I found myself more in the middle.
Yeah.
But, again, it took a series of activities that occurred, events that occurred that, it's like, it's not really how I pictured things going.
Yeah.
So, so and I think that given, you can't just give kids an example and say, well, look at me, I'm a Christian.
Right.
This is the way you should live your life, but you should be able to at least present,
Some
a balanced view rather than, and I'll give you an example. When I got married, she was Catholic, and so we went to see a priest
Before the
from
wedding?
Catholic Church,
Yeah.
pre-Cana is what it was called.
Pre-Cana?
Does that make sense? You ever hear of it?
Yeah. Well,
So-
Cana was the wedding feast, so
Pre-Cana,
pre-Cana would
yeah.
be like before the wedding.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So,
Never heard of it.
so we actually had to go blah blah blah, and like the second or third, I want to say interview, I guess, for the lack of a better term. But anyway, it was
Conversation, I
like,
guess.
he brought up, and he was old school Catholic. He was
Yeah.
a older guy, probably in his late 60s, early 70s,
Yeah.
and then when the question came to birth control or kids or anything like that, he was adamant. No, you welcome children into the marriage, blah blah blah. No abstinence or not.
Oh, okay.
But the use of birth control or anything like that was just a big no-no.
Yeah.
I mean, because he asked the question, and I said, well, we use birth control, and it was just like, or whatever, and and that just shut down the conversation completely. I mean, he was just like, so he had some papers he got and gave it to us, and I'm like, I understand that, you want people in your club, and this is, a
want big
21-year-old talking, but, and I was like, well, it's like either be a member of our club and bring in as many more members as you can, meaning children,
Yeah.
and raise them Catholic,
Yeah.
and I just thought that just really, really rubbed me the wrong way,
I see. Yeah.
and that's what made me move even more to the center of this, because here was, and I'm not going to use the word extremist, but he was definitely old school.
Yeah.
And for
Probably
him to
for
present
the time,
that,
probably, yeah.
you need to have as many kids as you can. You need to have, no matter if you can afford them, you have a place to keep them, can you feed them? Not even a consideration.
So he just kind of like, when you say shut down the conversation, like it was like, okay, I can't talk anymore. Or
he did, yeah.
actually say-
And it was just like he went and got some papers and, blah, blah, blah. We were
like
supposed to
did
read.
he still marry you? Like
Yeah.
Oh, he
yes.
performed
Well, actually, it
the
was a
ceremony?
different priest that actually married us, a younger
Yeah,
one.
But so like he still approved of the wedding, but
I
just
don't really
obviously
know.
was not happy
I don't know the
about it.
backroom deals that go on
Okay.
there. It was just like I say, I was actually shocked
he
by
might have,
that.
He might have said, "Well, I'm not going to do it. You do it."
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
And I even asked him. I said, "So you're telling me that Mike? The whole reason of coming here is for an outsider to be able to view us and say, yes, your marriage will be a successful marriage.
Yeah.
But yet, on the other hand, you're telling me that I got to have as many kids as we can, that I can't afford, that I can't feed, that I don't have any room for.
Yeah, yeah.
Logically, it made no sense.
Okay.
So, so that was kind of okay.
Would you say that was one of the major, say, milestones of your life?
That was definitely a dial down
you-
situation for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
It was just like I say. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, I got to get rolling here.
All right, I appreciate
But,
it.
yeah, thank you very much.
I'm going to give you my card so you
Okay.
can see this on. You see my channel and see this on the channel, and
Okay.
so I appreciate it.
Okay.
Good to meet you too.
Yeah.